doing the honors for us tonight. There are two newly inducted Kiwanians in this club, and we look forward to them presenting themselves to us tonight. Okay, so we'll now have the introduction of members. Is President-elect online?
Thank you, President Junior.
Oh, you are there. You are there.
Good evening.
Good night. How are you?
Oh, yes, I am.
Yes.
I'm President. I'm great.
Yes.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Glad to be here. Glad to see all of you. I realize there are 17 of us online, which says to me that we have a whole lot more persons who are on their way. Special good evening and welcome to the two men in the middle. That's Kiwanian Andy Jean Baptiste and Kiwanian Joshua Brown. I mean, I have had from my vantage point, I've had a little synopsis of who these gentlemen are. And I can tell those online who have not heard from them that you are going to be pleased. I mean, I have no fear of being wrong when I tell you that you will agree with me after you have heard their presentation that these are two future presidents of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. So let me get into welcoming those who are here. Are there any clubs outside of Jamaica that's with us this evening? Any club outside of Jamaica? Okay, how about any club in Division 25? Division 25? Oh, by the way, I have to, even before I go on to Division 24, I have to say, hi DLG Willie. I haven't seen you face to face in a long time. Need to come give you a check. Any clubs in Division 24? No?
Good evening. Good evening. Are you hearing me?
Good evening.
I am Division 25, the Little Club of Hopewell, Hanover. I am not seeing any other member as yet. DLG Joe Williams should be on. Secretary Danielle. My name is Cheryl. I'm a new Kiwanian, so I'm not seeing them. So I'm just saying good evening to all and thank you for your invitation.
Thank you, Kiwanian Cheryl. And it is always great. It is always great when you have a meeting like this and the heavyweight, the DLGs also are not here, and a Kiwanian will take over and say, I am here. Thank you, Kiwanian Cheryl from Hanover. Really glad you're with us this evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone in Division 24? Any clubs in Division 24 with us this evening? Oh, okay, what about 23 East? Do we have anyone from 23 East with us this evening?
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I
evening.
am Director Nordale from Kiwanis Club of Kingston. I am at the moment, but others will be joining us soon. I hope to have a wonderful meeting. Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Director Nadia. Thank you. Thank you for representing. Thank you for being with us. We hope you will have a great evening. Well, actually not hope. We know you'll have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from Division 23 East? Anyone else from Division 23 East? Okay, how about any club in Division 23 West?
Good evening, President-elect Newton.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yes, this is DP Kevin representing the diplomats and President Antoinette of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. As always, it is our pleasure to be on the platform with you this evening to share in your up close and personal meeting. I know that your two presenters will definitely not disappoint. Currently, I'm a lone ranger at the moment, but you can never be alone when you're among Kiwanians. It's like a family. We're all a family together. But I anticipate that other diplomats are crossing the flat bridge and will be joining your meeting shortly. Thank you so much for sending us the invitation.
Hey, thank you for being here, DP Kevin. And I really like the way you put it. I also like the way your picture is looking up. You know that, hey, some great things are going to be happening this evening.
Amen.
Thank you for joining
Amen.
us.
Thank you.
Okay. Any club from 23 West with us this afternoon? Any club from 23 West? Okay, what about Division 23 Central? Do we have anyone from Division and from any club in Division 23 Central with us this afternoon?
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Oh, hey, how is our lone female member of KCOK? How are you doing?
Oh, I am doing fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, I was just scrolling to look for other members because I know others are coming on. At the moment, I'm alone, but I know others are coming on. So I was hoping that they'll be here by now. But thank you.
Okay, we lost it there, but we heard most of it. Actually, I can't see all of the screen, but I was a bit worried when I didn't hear you respond, because I'm saying if you are not on, then we're in trouble. So thank you as usual for being here.
You are most welcome. You are most welcome. I don't know what is wrong with this phone. I'm on the phone and I'm trying to maneuver and it keep jumping off the going to mute. So thank you though for inviting me, and we look forward to this special evening up close and personal. Thank you.
All right, thank you for being with us. I don't know if it's artificial intelligence or what, but these phones seem to have a mind of their own these days. They do what they want regardless of what you want them to do. But you know,
I know. We just pay the bill. They do what they want and we pay the bill.
Exactly. Anyone else from Division 23 Central?
P.E. Newton, I believe you may have two members from Kiwanis Club Nation Builders. You have Secretary Diana Denton and you have...
Okay, Nation. Okay. Hi, Nation Builders. We're waiting to hear from you. We don't want to just hear me calling your name with my voice. We want to hear your voice. Secretary Diana Denton. Or is it that your phone is having a mind of its own also?
Probably the latter.
All right. Well, when you take back control of the phone, just jump in at any time. But happy to have you. Happy to have you as usual. Any SLPs? And Kiwani and Joshua Brown, please don't answer. You're not at SLP. Any SLPs?
We
How
have
about guests of Kiwanians?
We have
any guests of Kiwanians with us?
P. Newton.
Yes, DP.
Yes. I just wanted to introduce a guest who was with us. She was with us last week, but I just want to introduce. That's Ika, who is into documentary filming. And we are going to be having a session with her because we see where there's a project that she could help us with. But I just want to say welcome to her, and we're glad to have you. And we'll be following up.
Okay, great. Nice to have you. And it's a good thing you gave us a heads up, DP Stuart, because some of us have to go do some sit-ups and all of that before she gets us anywhere in front of a camera. Any other guests of Kiwanians with us? No other guests? Okay, how about someone who is here? Sorry, somebody was saying something? Okay, how about anyone who's on the platform with us tonight? Go ahead, Kiwanian Joshua Brown.
So my mother is here in addition to my girlfriend, Miss Nasika Watkins, and Miss Judith Brown would be my mother who's here with us tonight.
Welcome.
Always happy to have you. And I want to throw out the invitation, not only when I see my internet connection saying unstable. I hope you're still hearing me. I hope we'll have you ladies on many more weeks, not just when Kiwani and Joshua Brown is telling us his life story that you already know. But just we're a fun set of people to hang out with. So glad to have you this week, and we hope we'll have you many more weeks to come.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other guests of Kiwanians? Is there anyone who is joining us, not a guest of a Kiwanian, not a Kiwanian, but just joining us tonight? No? All right. I mean, there's 22 of us on now. I'm pretty sure pretty soon that number is going to double. It's gonna be, as I say, I've heard the stories from these two. And as I said before, I'm not afraid to say 2 future presidents of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. So I know you want to hear from them. You want to hear what I know about them. You want to hear it for yourself. So let me turn it over back to President Junior for him to continue the rest of the program. Thank you, President Junior.
And thank you, PE. So we'll now move, that's it for visiting members, and we'll now move to apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence at this time? Any apologies for absence?
Apologies for absence from Director Warren McDonald, EP Richard Reese, who is on his way back to Jamaica from Florida.
Okay.
And Treasurer Orville Lewis.
Okay. Any other apologies for absence? If not, your time, VP, Stephen, with our recognition of birthdays and anniversary.
Thank you, President Junior.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. At this part of our club program, we usually recognize birthdays and anniversaries of Kiwanians. And this week, those who are celebrating special occasions for the week. And this week we have 3 birthdays. We have Kiwanian Joseph Francis, who celebrates his birthday on Friday, March 17th, as well as Molly, who is the wife of DP Evan Brown. She also celebrates her birthday on the 17th of March. And finally, we have DP Jeff Masado, who is going to have his birthday on the 19th of March. So happy birthday to all 3 of those persons when they come along. And as we normally do, is there anybody else who is joining us today who is also celebrating a birthday or a special occasion that they'd just like to mention at this time so that we can also share that special occasion with you? Birthday, anniversary, graduation, birth of a child, any of those kinds of events? Not getting any response, so I hope everybody is well, and we wish those who are having their birthday all the best. And myself, as well as everybody who's on the call, look forward to hearing more about our exciting Kiwanian Andy Baptiste and Joshua Brown, and learning a little bit more about themselves and what they bring to the Kiwanian movement. So with that news, I would like to send it back to you, President Junior, and look forward to this evening's program, which looks very interesting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, VP.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll now move to the next item on the agenda, which is our Kiwanis education. Is LG online, LGE, Desmond?
President Junior, I don't see him, but I will.
Yes, do you have anything to tell us?
I will do the Kiwanis education.
Right.
Fellow Kiwanians and guests, this evening's Kiwanis education is taken from Article 15 of the Standard Form for Club Bylaws, entitled International and District Obligations. Section 1. This club shall exercise fully the privileges and rights of membership in Kiwanis International and the district, and shall discharge promptly all obligations imposed by Kiwanis International and the district. Section 2. The Board of Directors shall provide for the prompt review, approval, and forwarding of all reports required or requested by Kiwanis International or the district. Section 3. The Board of Directors shall provide for the prompt payment of all dues and other obligations to Kiwanis International and the district. Section 4. The President and President-designate should act as club delegates to the international and district conventions. Section 5. In the event the President or President-designate is unable to attend the district or international convention, this club should elect alternate delegates. Section 6. Delegates and alternates to all conventions or other meetings of Kiwanis International or the district shall be elected at dates sufficient in advance of such meetings to comply with the Kiwanis International bylaws and district bylaws. Provision for expenses of such representations or representatives shall be made in the club administration budget. The Board of Directors shall also provide for the proper representation at any other international and district meetings of Kiwanis in which this club has the privilege of participation. Fellow Kiwanians, that's your Kiwanis education for this evening. I just have learned something. Thank you, President.
And thank you, dear G. Willie, very appropriate at this time. So we'll move to our main event, which is our up close and personal. For this section, I'm going to be turning over to DP Stewart to handle the proceedings. DP Stewart.
Thank you, President Junior. Let's turn this on. Fellow Kiwanians and guests, this evening we have with us two of our newest members. That's Kiwanian Andy Jean Baptiste and also Kiwanian Joshua Brown. Now I sent them a message recently, but I'm not sure if Andy saw his, which was to tell him he was gonna go first. But let me just add that my role here is not to tell you anything about them, other than the fact that you know they are members of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. And they will be doing the other part, which will be basically introducing themselves to our audience tonight. So my job is really very easy. I just want to say one other thing. I usually make LGD Desmond a co-host, just in case anything was to happen at my end. So there would be an automatic host. But I just want to tell Stephen, VP Stephen, that I have made him co-host, so I just want him to know that, just in case, you know, I had a power cut, because I had a couple of short power cuts earlier today. So just in that event, the meeting would still go on. Okay. So Kiwani and Andy, I know you didn't check your WhatsApp, so you're hearing just now that you are gonna go first. And we are looking forward to hearing from you. So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
I'm just gonna share my, oh, can I please be allowed to share screen?
Sure, sure.
Yes.
In fact, I don't think you're restricted, but let me just do it this way. Okay, you shouldn't have a problem now. Go ahead. Go ahead. You should be able to do it now.
Right.
Just click on share screen. It should come
Yeah,
up.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So Andy Jean-Baptiste, who is he? Often confused with he who shouted in the desert, who ate honey and wild locusts and was dressed in camel's head, John the Baptist. I think my name is often a topic of discussion. The Jean-Baptiste, which is actually French for John Baptist. And I say this, that although John the Baptist and myself, we have different primary vocation, we're not far off in terms of the calling and proclaiming repentance. So I'm a product of Ayanola, land of the iguana, which was what the indigenous people called St. Lucia. St. Lucia belongs to the Lesser Antilles. It is to the south of Martinique. I don't know if you can see my cursor here. It is to the south of Martinique and to the north of St. Vincent. A population of 180,000 as per last census, and it's 278 square miles in terms of size. Famed for her World Heritage Drive-In volcano and her Twin Peaks, both of which are product of volcanic activity. Twin Peaks being called Go-Piton and Petit-Piton, meaning, well, Go meaning big in French Creole and Petit being small. Speaking of French Creole, in St. Lucia, we speak both English and French Creole, resultant of our French influence. St. Lucia has been referred to as the Helen of the West, owing to the fact that she was 7 times British and 7 times French, a total of 14 times that there was change of hands or change of leadership rather of the country. Some of them were civil, others were not. And why Helen? Because she was likened to Helen of Troy, who was indirectly part or responsible for, well, not responsible, she was indirectly the reason why the Trojan War came about. Because of her beauty, she was pursued by many valiant men. St. Lucia is also known for her Nobel laureates, and I dare say that St. Lucia is the only Caribbean island with 2 Nobel laureates. So Arthur Lewis, who received a Nobel Prize, in 1979 for his contribution to economics, and Sir Derek Walcott in 1992 for his contribution to the arts. Now, in terms of family life, I am the youngest of 5 siblings, came from very humble beginnings, in an era where a village really raised a child. Although we were not well off financially, my parents made it a point of duty to ensure, one, that we were spiritually grounded, And if it meant that my parents had to stay home while preparing 5 children to go off to church, they made it a point of duty to do so. The other thing was following the teachings of our Nobel laureate, Sir Arthur Lewis, who said that the answer to poverty was not money, but education. Education was very much emphasized in my family. So we understood from a very early that although we didn't have to work or do anything else, our primary focus was to ensure that we did well in school. Of course, we were involved in family activities. My family farmed largely, and during our summer vacations, we would have to go to the plantation to pick cocoa, other produce, citrus, among grand provisions. My grandmother made brooms and straw hats and straw mats. So we had to carry sticks and shave off the thin bark of the sticks that she would use for brooms. And also carry a special palm that she used for making the brooms, and straw that she used for the hats and mats that we would later learn how to plait or put together ourselves. So more on family life. I am still single. I know many people might say, well, why are you? I think that education tends to come at a sacrifice, a sacrifice socially. And I've always been one who has been laser focused. So whilst I was pursuing academics, I chose to focus on academics, knowing that everything will fall into place later. So I attended the Mondador Government Combined School in St. Lucia. It's a primary school, and then attended the Leon Hess Comprehensive Secondary School. I went on to South Louis Community College, and there I encountered one of the most difficult decisions ever. At secondary school, I pursued both the languages, well, French and Spanish, which was being offered, and the sciences. And I loved both of the subject areas. As a child, I was always fascinated with medicine, and I was this child who would be eager to assist persons. And as boys would always be boys, I would also be the child who would make a noose with thin pieces of grass and catch lizards. And of course, surgeries would happen at a later time with razor blades and would stitch them back. Of course, the patient then never did well because I had no knowledge of what I was doing, just experimenting on lizards. But boys would be boys. But this was a contributing factor for my fascination with the medical sciences. So I pursued the sciences at South Louis Community College in the hope of sometime returning to the languages, French and Spanish. Post-community college, I worked as a lab technician at Laboratory Services and Consultations in St. Lucia. I worked for 3.5 years. And I should say this, that as every other child, I never factored in that there would be a gap between community college and pursuing university studies. But again, going back to having humble beginnings and not being able to pay for tertiary education, I had to resort to work. Working at Laboratory Services and Consultations was a very pleasant experience, and it really exposed me to the myriad of personalities of patients or clients who came into the lab, and being able to understand different personalities and navigate being the most junior of staff at that time. It taught me how to work very quickly, efficiently, yet independently. And I had a very steep learning curve at that time. And it served as a pretty good foundation for pursuing medicine later on. I later went on to the Latin American School of Medicine in Cuba. Now, many persons, when they think of Cuba, they think of restrictions, economic restrictions, the embargo, they think of hard life, and all of that is quite accurate. I would say this, that Cuba was not for the faint of heart. But this was a time that I actually rejoiced in my humble beginnings, because having little and having to be resourceful coming out of a house where there was not much, I was pretty much equipped or prepared for a life in Cuba. My mother, having 5 kids, 3 boys, 2 girls, she had no time to spoil anybody. And I know that many people will say, oh, you were the last, so you were the wash belly, you were spoiled. Nothing of the sort. My mother was harder on her sons than she was on her daughters. And she had the mindset that she never wanted women to cut style or take advantage on her sons. So we pretty much had to learn to do everything. By the time I was in grade 2, I had already started lighting the stove. By the time I was in grade 3, I was already baking unsupervised. And needless to say that I was able to wash and iron my clothing also. My father, having been a police officer in his earlier days and later on a fireman, was very militant. So discipline was not an option. Discipline was the way of life. So being so independent at a young age and having had thoughts and having had teachings or lessons regarding discipline so early on, it prepared me very well for a life in Cuba. It made me very resourceful. When persons complained about the food, and I should tell you that a day like today, I do not like rice. The Cubans, they grow rice, and they grow their own rice, and they would dry the rice on the road. And later that rice would be picked, cleared of all stones and debris, and would later be prepared for us. Why I don't like rice? In Cuba, you would get rice porridge for breakfast, and for lunch it would be rice and some sort of meat kind. And for dessert, you would likely get sweet rice, which is the same rice porridge, but now served cool or cold and not warm. And for dinner, you are likely to have rice. So I never liked rice thereafter. I still don't like rice. But Cuba was a lovely experience. The simple way of life, the limitations from the embargo and the simple way of life pretty much contributed to the solidarity among the citizenry, and that solidarity was extended to us. It was an area where your teachers, your consultants, doctors who had been in practice for many years, they took the bus like everybody, or they rode bicycles. Very few actually owned their own vehicles. There was a great sense of community, great sense of togetherness. And it was there that you actually appreciated that being a doctor was not a prestige, but was actually a privilege to serve. And these are values that have stayed with me and have contributed to my formation and my character, not just as a person, but as a doctor also. I graduated from Cuba in 2014. This is my younger, slimmer, happier, stress-free self. Thereafter, I worked at the Victoria Hospital in St. Lucia. At Victoria Hospital, after completing 1 year of internship, I rotated for a while between the pediatric and obstetric and gynecology departments. Very short stints. And thereafter, I continued the rest of my tenure at the accident and emergency department, completing a total of 3.5 years at the accident and emergency department. So, why Jamaica? And the slides end here. Why Jamaica? I have interests in internal medicine and pediatrics. I think it's safe to say that I have put pediatrics to my back. But I love the extremes of ages. Pediatrics, the pediatric population, they're very affectionate, they're very sincere. And it's a lovely set of people for me as a physician to work with. Geriatrics, simply because when I was younger, my parents used to send us off to the countryside, and I was pretty much attached to my grandmother. You know, I know that it's often said that you shouldn't mix state and religion, but I dare to step on toes when I say often it is said that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. But I dare say also that at the feet of elderly persons, you can also get wisdom. And I loved my grandmother. I loved being around her. And because of that interaction, that relationship rather with my grandmother, it gave me a greater appreciation for elderly persons. You know, they say once a man, twice a child, and it is indeed true. And geriatrics is a specialty, an area specialty in medicine that not many nurses and doctors actually enjoy doing, because elderly persons tend to be difficult as they age, they become demented, but it is a natural course that we all have to go through. And when we consider the fact that our population is aging and persons are not making as many children as before, it's certainly a field that needs to be paid special attention to. So I came over to Jamaica for the pursuit of internal medicine. I was rather at the University Hospital of the West Indies from 2018, sorry, right. To 2002. For those of you who have seen NASCAR races, you would see that often the cars would come to the pit stop area where they will get fueled, minor repairs will be done. As it pertains to my academic trajectory, I'm currently at a pit stop. I'm still working as a physician, currently situated at Just Meds Medical Center, 12 Westminster Road. And this is not an advertisement. As it pertains to involvement or my interest in Kiwanis, at secondary school, I was very actively involved in Red Cross. I'm of the mindset that if I belong to an organization, I don't like to warm benches, and I've already learned over the years that I have a spirit to serve, so I don't warm benches. In secondary school, I joined the Red Cross movement in Form 1. I became PRO in that same Form 1, and by Form 2, I was already president of the Red Cross movement at my secondary school. So from Form 2 to Form 5, I served as president. Also involved at the national level, serving at the national level. So that piqued my interest in outreach activities and serving. Going on to Cuba, was also actively involved in outreach groups. There was a group for the 5 Cuban heroes that pretty much did a lot locally, independent of its other, if I dare say, politically driven agendas. Was also actively involved in Christian Youth Fellowship, being the president in my last year and a half. I happened to meet my introduction to Kiwanis, as Chairman Burton would say, it was a baptism of fire. There was a health fair, and I don't recall which school it was. And last minute, somebody contacted me and asked, are you willing to volunteer for a health fair? Without knowing much about it, where it was, what was the scope of service being offered, the population that was being targeted, I volunteered because that's just me. I like service, and if it is within my ability to help, I will help. As the fair went on, speaking with Chairman Andrew Burton, I realized that number one, we had a lot in common. If it were ever possible to meet somebody who does not look like you physically but have so much in common, then that was the moment. And learning a bit more about Kiwanis, the objectives of Kiwanis, I was really intrigued. I recall in St. Lucia having done a presentation for a club in St. Lucia and was invited to join at the time. But of course, the way that I worked, it never afforded me the time to be part of such a movement. And I capitalized on the opportunity. As everybody knows, I joined on and I listened and I became more intrigued as the meetings, the days went by. And alas, here I am, ready and eager to serve. As I said, I'm not a bench warmer. And in any capacity, in any way that I'm able to serve, I will, as long as time permits. Even if it is to scrub a toilet bowl, that's how much I serve. I tell persons that I am only outspoken when in 2 forums, at work and at church, because the environment calls for it. You cannot be an introverted doctor. In the patient's eyes, you probably need a doctor more than they do. And in church, well, that goes without saying. Introversion has no place there. I think I've mentioned religion and mentioned and church and quoted so often that by now you should know that I'm very dedicated to the cause. I am a Christian, and I think it's the greatest decision that I've ever made. That pretty much summarizes the persona of Andy Baptiste.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. And you know, when you're introduced to us, we were basically just giving your name. I mean, that we really should have put doctor before it, right? I mean,
no. It's not so serious. There's no doctor on my birth certificate, so I go by my government name, which is Andy Baptiste. I don't subscribe to titles in the working environment, sure, but I respond to Andy Baptiste as well.
Okay, Andy. Thank you very much for that. I like, we don't usually take a lot of questions at this. We usually wait until both persons have spoken. But one area of activity you didn't touch on much, and that was sports. Did you play anything? Did you do anything in sports? You want to add anything there?
Regarding sports, at secondary school, I did take part in athletics. I did run long distance races under 100. Was I any good? Let's just say that I may have come last on a few occasions, on many occasions, but I would later realize that the same persons who would beat me in short distance races, I later, in Form 3, I was recruited for the national junior volleyball team, and part of the team was a guy from my secondary school who won every single short distance race. And on the court, on the volleyball court, when we would do sprints, I would always beat him. But then I came to understand that they always had track shoes and I never had track shoes. So I think that was a contributing factor. That is my story and I'm sticking to it. As it pertains to continuation of my pursuit of volleyball, it is one of my biggest regrets not continuing on the national junior volleyball team. What had happened was that I was a super nerd at secondary school. You couldn't find a nerd greater than myself. I carried every single textbook in my bag, and it was so serious that I spoke about pursuing the languages and sciences. My French class was on one extreme of the school compound and the labs were on the other extreme. My French teacher would not start the class until I stepped foot into the class. And I proved it by walking slowly on a given day and she would not start the class. That's how much of a nerd that I was at that time. It happened that there was a point in time that the other boys on my junior team, they stopped attending practice and the seniors used to spike at me all the time. So I said, you know what, forget this. It's 7 o'clock, I'm on a dark complex being spiked by seniors and I prefer academics anyway. So I stopped. Of course, thereafter, the junior players returned and a lot of them obtained scholarships to Canada for studies. I never thought that it would have ever been possible to pursue medicine on a sports scholarship, but one of the players actually did medicine on a sports scholarship. So as it pertained to sports, that was my sports stint. Do I still play volleyball? No, I don't. I think that sporting activity has been limited to jogging, if you even want to call that sporting.
Okay. Thank you for that that addition, to your presentation, and it was well worth it. I'm glad I posed the question. All right, at the end of after Joshua has come on, then we'll open it, and if anybody wants to ask a few questions, you'll have that opportunity. So make some jottings if you have something for Andy at the end of the total set of presentations. All right, so now it's time for us to hear from Kiwanian Joshua Brown. Joshua, it's all yours. Over to you.
Right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Brown. And I think most person would actually know me by President Joshua or DP Joshua back in my microcircuit days. But to give a summarization of who I am, I'm just a fun-loving person by nature. So for me, I am of a family, well, so for me, I am the last child, or what they call wash belly, of 5 siblings. And trust me, in my family, I was known as the problem child, the child that was born after my mother would have been tied off, as the terminology used at that time. So I was the unexpected one, in which my grandmother dreamt the name Joshua, in which my mother confirmed it in the spirits. And we're not talking Joshua, who was the son of none, because he was a strong leader and somebody who, managed to behave. But for me in my earlier days, trust me, the best words my parents would use to describe me as a child that, you have to ensure that you have a belt close by or some form of disciplinary tool close by, because he was just up and about the place. When I started to cry, just call that your entire day would have come to an end. So for me, during my early life, I attended the Redis All-Age School, and that is in St. Andrew, West Rural St. Andrew. And this is the first school I attended in terms of, primary school. And for me, it was really difficult at the time, because even though I was in my classes from grade 1 to grade 3, it was a case where I could not read, I could not write, as I was diagnosed with a disability, both dyslexia and ADHD, which kind of, made sense for my parents having me around like a lapdog, in which they could not contain my movements majority of the time. So I transitioned from the Redis All-Age School to my first interaction with other students with disability. And I think that was the MICO practicing unit right here at the MICO. I went there for about 2 years, in which I would spend sometimes at the MICO and other times in my normal classroom, in which now I'm learning that it was called a pull-out program. It did help for a time until I totally regressed by the time I went in grade 4. So I continued the normal system at the Redis All-Day School up until grade 6, in which I did the GSAT exam, and I would have passed for the worst school. Like my parents would have dared not to send me. So they decided to go back to the Ministry of Education, in which I had my first encounter with a person who would have become one of my lifelong mentors, Miss Christine Addington, who's an education officer at the Ministry of Education. So she would have aided my parents, who fought effortlessly to get me placed in a special needs school, in which that school was the MICO Care Center, the actual care center itself. So I went there for a few years. I would have, kind of developed certain reading skills, certain social skills. So as they said, I would have been doing better. But their main concern was that each time I came home, I was like a talking jackrabbit. I could not shut up. I could not stop talking. I could not stop moving up and down. And trust me, most times they would be irritated at that point. But after I left the MICO Care Center, I would have actually been placed at a school called Shore Foundation Educational Center. And this would have been transitioning into grade 7. So when I went to Shore Foundation, I spent about 3 to 4 years at that special needs school. And bear in mind, it was still a case where I could not read. I had a wonderful memory. I could remember a story from back to front. But at that age, if you told me to read my name on a paper, I would have told you I see stars and I see letters jumping up and down, it was quite funny for me back then. But to other persons, it was a bit serious. So after attending the Shore Foundation Educational Center, I would have done what they called at the time the GNAT examination, in which I would have been successful in being placed at the St. Andrew Technical High School, a school that I hold very, dear to my heart, because that is a school where I, kind of unraveled my little onion and I bloomed. So while attending the St. Andrew Technical High School in grade 9, please bear the fact, just please make this small notation that in the grade 9 class, I was amongst about 46 students in the class. And me being a student who is coming out of a special needs school in grade 9, I was still reading at what they would kind of call the grade 1 to grade 2 level. So most times in the back of the class, while the teachers were talking, I was like, yes, miss, I understand everything you're saying. And all in my mind is that when it's lunchtime, when it's break time, and what am I going to eat when I go home? Because I don't know what these persons are talking about. So it would have not been until like the second term in grade 9 that I really got some help. And this was through some integral teachers that I believe the Lord strategically placed at that institution to actually aid me along my way. We should have been persons like Miss Anne-Marie Cephas, who is a teacher practitioner, and Mr. Garfield Tolo, who was my industrial teacher. They were the ones who really stayed back even after school and did some extra sessions with me to ensure that I, got up to par. And then it was my same Miss Cephas who would have recommended me to join the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force at the time, in which I really joined it because one of my eldest brothers, his name is Ryan, I saw him join it when he was younger. And I said to myself, listen to me, see we are in a lifelong rivalry. Anything you do, I'll try my best to do it better. Any position you get, I'll try my best to surpass you, regardless if I have a special need or not. So at the time, at the St. Andrew Technical High School, when I joined the cadet force in grade 9, it's like I found the home where I belonged. I found companionship. I found friends that, even to this day, they still check up on me. So at the time in the cadet force, everything for me was cadet center. That's the only thing I could speak. And because the same teachers who would have taught me in my daily classes, they were also a part of that program. They could have seen where the information was transferring from what I learned academically to what I learned in cadet. So there was this form of cohesion as it pertains that right there. And I was still having my same issues that pertains dyslexia and I'm able to understand certain concepts until I think in the last term of grade 9, when I fell in love with the concept of literature. So for a person who cannot read, my literature teacher made this one specific comment on my grade 9 report, in which my mother can quote me because I still have that one, that though unable to read specific information, his creative and analytical skills and imagination surpass any other in the classroom. Though this may be a peculiar comment, I believe he was born in the wrong century because most of the poems that I would want to read are poems that were written in the 18th century, in the 17th century, poems of Edgar Allan Poe, Beowulf, The Pit and the Pendulum, certain things that my teacher themselves found boring and they were surprised how I managed to actually understand what I was reading. And during that same time in grade 9, transitioning into grade 10 at stats, I tried out a few things like football, in which I found out that it seems that I don't know my left foot from my right foot because every time I go on the field, it's either I make them win the goal, I get salad, I lose the match. So it turns out that football was not for me for my entirety at the St. Andrew Technical High School until I tried rugby, in the latter parts of my days at stats. And I said, this sport looks too dangerous for a person like me because I was very skinny and small at the time. So I was afraid for my bones to be broken easily. However, at stats, in grade 10, I would have really, outdo myself because that was where I got my first award for the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force Best Cadet Unit Platoon Sergeant in that year. And that was a year in which I fully poured out everything into the cadet force. And it even caused the principal to recognize some other things that I would have done just, you know, chores to the high school at the time. I remember the day when the principal was asking the engineering department in which I was a part of to make the fence around the football field. They would have recommended me to be one of those individuals to make the fence. And the question that I asked is that, would it allow me to miss class? They said, yes, you'll miss one class. So I jumped at the opportunity to miss class. So most of my days spent in grade 10 in the afternoon was while learning how to weld. I was actually welding the fences around the school. When the teachers' cars needed repair and stuff like that, I was from the engineering unit, so I would have been working on teachers' cars. So I think the vice principal at the time called me Mr. Brown, a jack of all trades, because no matter where she went around the school, she could always find me doing something until a point in time she was saying she's confused. She don't know if I'm an engineering student or it was called home economics student, because when she went into the engineering class in grade 10, she saw me there working. When she went into the home ec lab, she saw me there cooking. So she was like, I am really confused because, you know, this makes no sense. How can these students be everywhere at once? So it was a case where my parents kind of was a bit concerned because Stats is in an area that is not really safe. It's between Denham Town, Rose Town, near Tivoli Gardens, right down there. And I used to visit Painland very regularly. I used to sleep over there most times. And being a person from Red Hills, way up in the hills, having no real relatives in Kingston, my parents fretted every single day and night. I remember my sister telling me once that the day I left Stats is the day that she stopped having headaches, because every single day she would fear something happening to me. So even at that time at Stats, I would have, you know, did a lot of things. I co-created the engineering club, I co-created the robotics club. In addition to I ran for a head boy, I didn't get it. But I remember when the career advancement program came out at that time in 2017, 2018, and they kind of consolidated a student body. I was the first Region 1 president for that organization, and I would have worked along with the coordinator to ensure that the CAP program, which was a part-time program for students who would have, you know, dropped out of school and failed, you know, to integrate it with the sixth form program, because even in sixth form, I was a sixth form, I was a sixth form president at the time, but I'll speak a little bit about that tricky issue there. So I would have caused them to integrate the CAP program with the sixth form program. So anybody who would have been leaving Stats at the time would have come to our sixth form. We made it a mandate that you must leave with a skill, because the mandate of Stats was that regardless of what you come to the high school with, you must leave with a skill. So my first actual paying job, as it pertains, you know, giving me checks for a month as a high school student, was at Stats. So it would be a case when I was in sixth form, the same CAP coordinator would have saw my skills in terms of documentation, and she would have made a recommendation to the principal at the time to hire me on a part-time basis to work at the CAP office. So though working as the sixth form president, I was actually on staff with the high school, working in the CAP office while still running and managing, you know, the smaller clubs in the school. And I was also the drama club president at the time, because though my rugged appearance in terms of being intelligent and everything, I was very stern. I think grade 7 students would have met me at the time were a bit confused, because they said the same person who, you know, made them afraid to go to the cadet meetings was the same charismatic person. They're actually a different personality who they met when they come to the drama club. So I remember one girl said this to me: "You is like the devil, because you pretend to love us in the drama club and you make us feel nice and happy. But when we go to the cadet meetings, you are like a totally different person." So I said, that's what drama teaches you to do. It teaches you to be diverse. So I can say Stats was a school that really molded my personality. It made me into the person that I am today. And it was through the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force and the sixth form program that really caused me to fall in love with the aspect of service. It caused me to fall in love with, you know, giving back. So after leaving Stats, I actually went to work at a call center for about a year. And I went abroad for a year to visit my brother and work. And even in that time, I was in limbo. I didn't know, what to do with my life. I didn't know what to go because the prospect of being a teacher never came into my mind because I never like most of my teacher them. So I thought to myself, I would never go into that field. That is stressful. So I was planning to do engineering at the Caribbean Maritime University while I was working at the call center. And then one of my past teachers would have called me and said, why don't you go and do industrial technology at Stats? At Michael. So I said, well, I'm not doing anything. Might as well I signed up for something. So when I came down here with like $100,000 in my account itself. I was dirt broke. So I applied for the college. I applied for a scholarship. I did not get through. I said to my mother, Mommy, and high school, this in a college, and broke poor people like me now. I reach nowhere down here. She said to me, I cannot forget this. The God you serve will cause you to be elevated no matter where you are placed and where you are rooted. So it doesn't matter the odds that you see in front of you. It doesn't matter the mountains that you see in front of you. It doesn't matter the giants that you see in front of you. Your God will cause you to triumph over those giants. And don't be afraid if one day you end up being the guild president for the same place. And I said to her, no offense, ma'am, but she can't tell you right now. That's madness you're talking. Me, them place here, a college, this and high school, this and that. Never, ever, that is impossible. So in my first year, my father managed to help me with some of the fees in my first year. And then, bam, in my second year, it was like a dramatic move of God where scholarships just miraculously came in. Persons who I didn't even know was donated money for me to, actually finish college. So while being at Michael in my first year, I didn't really do anything. As a matter of fact, let me even say how I even came into the special education program. So I was down here, signing up for industrial technology. I finished signing up and said, all right, I'm going to start class now. I think I passed a lady who taught me when I was younger at the primary school. And I was like, it's either I am going crazy, this lady knows some form of voodoo to make her look so young, but I could swear that lady taught me when I was about 10. So I went to her and said, Miss, do you recognize? Hi, Joshua, how are you doing? I said, Jesus, Miss, you look like you haven't changed. She simply said to me, I now have 4 children and it's called the blessings of God. And I said, how do you even recognize me? She was like, a voice like that and a face like that cannot be hidden. So it really caused me to be thinking. And then I started to reflect on my, history with special needs, going to different special needs schools, being at the Michael physically as a special needs student. And I thought to myself, you know what? I am going to change from the industrial technology that I am doing to special education. And boy, I can tell you, that was a hurdle within itself, because when I went to the dean at the time for education, and I said, Mom, I'm coming into special education, and she looked on my resume, and she smiled at me, and she says, young man, that will never happen. And I was like, why? Because, young man, you are a student who have majority of your subjects are in technical areas. There is no logical sense or reason for you to transition into the special education program. So at the time, I had to go to the office to meet with someone else. I went to the dean for the science department. I said, sir, I'm requesting a release from this department so I can be transferred. He then again looked at my resume and smiled at me and said, young man, I am hesitant to sign this document as I don't see the need for you to transfer since you're qualified in the area of, engineering. I don't see the need for you to transfer. So it took me about 2 weeks to convince these 2 deans, for one to release me and one to accept me. And I can say it was an act of God that the same 2 deans would come to appreciate me today during conversations. So after I was released into the special education department and I was starting to go to my classes as a special needs student, well, as a special needs student with special needs, most of these same lecturers who I would have interacted with were the same ones who would have taught me when I was indeed a special needs student. Some of them would have recognized me, and over the period of time by interacting with me, some of them would have remembered me by the excessive talking and the inability to sit down. So in my first year, it was just me trying to mold my character into a college mindset. And then in my second semester, COVID struck. And then I was inspired by the same UCCF club that Mr. Anderjan Baptiste spoke about, give out more to God. And in doing so, I actually ran for the position of what they call spiritual coordinator, or a pope at the time for the college, as a first-year student. And this is like a core position, so you sit at the executive board for the guild of the college. And bear in mind, this had never been done in the history of the college for a first-year student to apply. As a matter of fact, I applied for an assistant position. But when I went into the interview, I was told that I am not qualified to run for the assistant position. Rather, I am qualified to run for the actual position itself, with a senior student being my assistant. And I don't know if that was an act of God or some form of spiritual mentorship, but as a first-year student, I was sitting in the executive core, or the core of the guild for my college as a first-year student, with persons who would have been vastly qualified. And most of them came to me for spiritual support, for spiritual guidance, in which I myself at that time was lost. As I'm being like, God, I don't know how you're using me to encourage these persons when I need encouragement myself. So that was a bit of a joke on me for like the 2 years that I ran in that office. But the more I have been at the mindful, I have found myself trying to reach out more as it pertains to my community, helping a person who owns a feeding shop to actually do community outreach. I joined the Micro Youth Organization for Teachers, in which I work with a lot of persons there. And even at that same time, I actually went back to one of the special needs schools that I was previously attending to actually donate some computers to them. I don't know how I got the money, but I call that an act of God again, to donate some computers to them and to be their IT administrator during that direct COVID period. And it wasn't up until third year, where I was still the spiritual coordinator, sitting in the office for 2 years, in which I was introduced into the Circle K club. And being introduced to this club, it was when I saw, as my colleagues would say, a white man come on campus with a white hair. And I believe we all know that white man that we're speaking, none other than D.O.G. William Reason, in which I met him on the campus. And I don't think he remembers, so I met him on the campus. And, my friends at the time have invited me to come to the club meetings and stuff. And I, went to the club meetings. I went to a few service projects in which I fell in love with the club, and especially the prospect of serving others. I tried to be, active for the most part in that semester. And I think it was I joined that club in the September or November thereabout. Then by time the next month, the next year would come around, in which April for the actual elections and stuff, I was going to run for the position of the bulletin editor. Then by a mere look of spark, I changed my mind and decided to run for the president for this club. Then again, I know not what I was doing. It was just the Lord leading me, into go to that field. And even in acting, when I got the position of presidentship, I was literally nerve-wracked. I complained to my mother every single day that, Mommy, man, what am I doing? I don't know what God made me say, but this doesn't make no sense. Me managing spiritual aspect of the college is easier, but managing a club, it means I have to deal with people, I have to talk to them people, and I like talk to people. So we prayed about it, and I just decided, pursue. Despite the many challenges that I would have faced in trying to get the club organized, I can say the team that I had at the time, though rough and rugged, they were persons who stood behind you and pushed you to make the club different, to do things different. And I believe at that time, I made it my mantra that, at least 85% of the projects at the time that we were going to do, were going to be special needs projects. We're going to be projects that, you know, really stem from my department to something that, you know, I really want to give back to. Because I said to them at the time, not much emphasis is being placed on the area of special needs, and there's so much more that could be done. And I think, you know, President Richard, well, DP Richard Rees can attest to this, DRG William can attest to this, President Ashira Gary can attest to this, President Truden Bird can attest to it, that almost on a weekly basis, I would either be bothering them, annoying them, calling late at night, speaking about special need projects that we want to do. Almost every single weekend, we had a special needs project, or we had some form of projects, you know, giving back. And that even in doing that, that's how I began to learn more about the Kiwanis family, about the Circle K family, how it's organized, how it's run. So it's basically through service to others, I really found my footing in terms of who I want to be and who I am as an individual. Regardless of me even still being the spiritual coordinator at the time, I did not let those two roles clash, but I rather combined them to say, you know what? Every single project I'm going to do, I'm going to put the Lord in front of it, and it will be successful. And there's one of them can attest that there were many nights that I wanted to resign. I said, I can't do it. Even I see a past member, Hughes, she would normally call me and pester me that, what are we doing this weekend? There's nothing being done. Come on, President, you cannot be doing this. We need to be active. And even in the midst of COVID, believe it or not, we had members coming out to projects. We had members in a lot of things. And that really impacted me as a person at that time to say, you know what? This is where I belong. And that's where my passion stems from. My passion stems from the fact that this is the case once you have a disability, it's never a case that you always have. It stems from the prospect of me being a special needs student to give back to the same communities, to give back to the same persons with disabilities, as I've also been impacted by an institution that really caused me to be the person who I am today. So even in the position of the president for the Circle K Club at the time, my mindset and my heart was in giving back and serving others. And it's even still with me right now. My whole personality is always about helping others. And I even believe that this same Circle K experience will have caused me to run for the position of Guild President. And even as Guild President right now, though the challenges, the setbacks, everything, one of the main things I kept as my core value is to give back. So I normally reach out to all my Conians, work with the alumni department or anyone I can find to work with to find ways to give back to students who are struggling. Same how I was a first-year student with only 100,000 to start the college and was struggling. So those are some of the things that really made me who I am today. So even now, serving as the guild president for the college, I can tell you it is not easy, but it is a case where I enjoy it because of the one core thing. I am giving back to others. So that's just a small snippet of who Mr. Joshua Rishon Brown is. There's a lot of details that have been cut out, but that's just who I am. And I actually feel at home right here because majority of the persons that I'm seeing in the group, in the meeting, are persons who have already been familiar with me as President Joshua for the American Circle K Club. So I would just say to myself, I'm back home where I belong.
Thank you, Joshua. Yes, you're back home where you belong. Okay, I just wanna, as I said, we don't really need an extended Q&A because we don't grill our presenters in up close and personal, but you know, we do allow one or two questions. So I'm gonna at this stage, you know, throw it right open. Joshua, I'm glad that you shared as much as you did, and really appreciate your presentation. So any members from the audience would like to ask any of our two presenters a question?
DLG Joe's hand up.
Oh, sure. Let me check the chat. Go ahead, DLG Joe.
Yeah, turn on.
DLG Joe, your hand was up, so we're asking you to.
Yes.
Go ahead.
This one is for Joshua.
Okay.
He said that he could not read. How was he able to move from grade to grade and move up the ladder?
So the first thing is that though I could not read, I had a very good memory. So if I saw a word that I remembered, I could say the word. So let's say, for example, Mark Anderson said in the chat, very passionate presentation. I would simply say very passionate presentation. So it would give the guys as though I'm reading, but in actuality, I'm just recording things I remember. So it would be basically me just talking and not fully understanding what that sentence means.
How were you able to reproduce it? Memory?
Yes, memory. Memory.
I think that was fantastic.
Interesting.
Okay, thanks for that, dear Joe.
Thank you.
Who else would like to put in a quick one to any of our two presenters? Oh, who is next up in line? Is that DP? I'm trying to read from Dwayne. IPP Dwayne. Well, that's DP. Is that DP Dwayne now? Right. Go ahead.
Evening, everyone. Thank you. Very useful presentation, both presenters, Kiwanians, welcome. But my question is to Kiwani and Joshua as well. I know you said you're still guild president. Does that mean you're still at MICON? When is it that you are expected to graduate? If not.
So currently I can probably say this currently. I'm just spending my last 2 months at the MICA, and I'm currently in teaching practice at the Genesis Academy. So I'd say in the next 2 months, or as I would love to put it, 71 days, that I will no longer be a part of the MICA.
Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, thanks for that, DP Dwayne. Anybody else? You can take about 2 more.
Yes, I only caught. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. We are hearing you.
I caught last part.
You're breaking up though.
The gentleman who doesn't name. The first speaker.
Andy.
Yeah. Andy, right. I found it, the little I heard, very interesting. And not to underplay whatever he said, but this young man here is totally fascinating. I know he has been coming to meetings because I always see President Joshua and so on. But I still am amazed. Dear G. Joe had asked how we made the transition. I just want to know what he thinks is his competence in reading now. Does he still rely on memory a lot? I mean, it's a new field. So what comment would you have to make on that, Joshua?
So as it pertains my competency in reading now,
yes.
I would say I'm quite proficient in reading both New English and Old English. So I think I'm good now.
And I think you're very good at being bilingual, because when I heard your grammar straight through, and then you did your own local thing, I said, oh, he can switch. But for your speech and presentation, excellent. I learned a lot, and I haven't been to meetings recently, and I'm glad. Maybe I should join you and say, maybe the Lord said this tonight. Very good. I have enjoyed both the little I heard from Andy and all of what I heard from you.
Thank you, DP Earl.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. The tape, we will have the tape. Sure, go ahead, Newton.
I just want to make a comment, DP Stewart.
Go ahead.
You know, I am not surprised about Kiwani, Andy, and Joshua's success, because they have, ever since Joshua was President Joshua, and ever since Andy joined up with us, they have been such faithful members at the meeting that when they were being inducted, it was kind of a, hold on, I know they weren't members as yet, but they have been so faithful in attendance that anyone who was on the platform could almost mistake them to have been members from long before they were inducted. And it shows in how they have approached their entire lives. They are dedicated to whatever they set out to. To iron in it for me.
Yes, definitely. I like the passion, you know, that word is really appropriate. And to listen to, that was for Joshua, and to listen to Andy and his background. And I like the little background on St. Lucia, you know, that was, you know, it made us become more involved in who you are. So generally, you know, this is really what this up close and personal set out as an objective to accomplish. And I can easily say that it was accomplished tonight. Is there one last question anybody has? Is anybody in there somebody has his hand up? Is it that they didn't take the hand down? Let me see. Oh, that one you didn't take your hand down. Okay. I am gonna close it now. Well, let me just say, because we don't have a vote of thanks for these sessions, so I just you know, fill that gap. I really want to say thanks again to and I'm gonna say it this way, because we called the doctors in our club, we kind of throw it in some more. So let me say Kiwani and Dr. Andy Baptiste and Kiwani and Joshua Brown. Thank you for making this evening what it has been, because you know, I must admit that it's the first time that we have asked persons to do this presentation when they have just become members. We usually allow you to get your feet wet a bit more, but somehow I felt it would work. And I'm really happy that that's the route we went in this time. So thank you very much. You've really enlightened us. You have made us really, you know, even more happy than we were before, that you have chosen us to be a vehicle for the service that you obviously want to give.
Inspiration.
So, you know, thank you again, both of you. We couldn't have asked for a better presentation or better presentations. And thank you very much. Back to you, President Junior.
He's up. His mic is not on.
But his name is there though.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, DP. Two very interesting young men, two very powerful presentations. And I certainly enjoyed it. Like we have said before, I learned quite a lot about St. Lucia, which I think was very, very interesting. And you know, it was President Joshua, Kiwanis Joshua, very entertaining, and you know, also good. I listened to all of it. Thank you, gentlemen, for giving this presentation. We certainly enjoyed it, and we are happy that you're a part of us and a part of our organization. Thank you. We're looking forward for great things from you both. Okay. So we'll move to our Sarge, Zuri, Chairman Zuri. Are you on?
Good evening, everyone. I'm on.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
All right, good. So let me thank my deputy last week. I wasn't feeling well, so I'm happy he agreed to fill in for me, and I'm sure you all enjoyed last week. So I'm gonna give you just a little joke. So this man walks into a bar and he says, "When I drink, everybody drinks." And everybody in the bar go, "Wait, who is this man?" Yeah, but everybody go and they ask the bartender for a drink and everybody is happy. So he said, "All right, second round. When I drink, everybody drink." Again, everybody took their drinks. Then he took out his wallet and he goes, "When I pay, everybody pays." So the last time I was well enough to be on the platform, I was charged by the president. Yes. So in keeping with the joke, when I pay, everybody pays. So this week is a blanket fine. Yes. I'll just leave it at $300. Have a good evening, gentlemen. Nice. And everyone else on the platform.
And thank you.
Nice try.
Yeah, that one was good. That one was good.
Secretary, I have to pay for the president now.
At least he makes me laugh. Sarge, thank you. I won't charge you extra tonight. But you're part of the charge. Right? When we are charged, everybody's charged. All right. Notice and announcement and inter-club opportunities.
Thank you.
Willie? Yes, I am on.
Regarding notice announcement, but before I go that, let me just echo the sentiments already expressed by number Kiwanis. Two very powerful stories, yes. And I'm glad to be part of tonight's meeting. But my duty tonight is to update the members on notices and upcoming events. Just to remind you, and on Friday, March 17th, we are planning after work get together at the office of DP Richard Reese at 11 Fairway Avenue. I've written to all the new Kiwanians. I'm afraid I haven't got a good response, so I'm hoping that I will get a response from the majority of them, because this is an opportunity for us to get together and meet some of the senior Kiwanians in the club. But note, the address is 11 Fairway Avenue. I think I may have mentioned 10 in my email. On Saturday, March 18th, our breakfast feeding program continues at the Marie Atkins Shelter, and that is at 9 o'clock. On the same day, Division 23 Central will be having a membership virtual workshop, and that goes from 10 o'clock to 1 p.m. The following day, on Sunday, Division 23 Central will be having a Builders Club church service at the Saxop Church. I don't have the time, but I will get the time and pass it on to the members.
Okay.
And I just want to reinforce the project, fundraising project by the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew, which is a sensational solar raffle. This is a great fundraising opportunity for us, because for every book we sell, tickets are $500. For every book we sold, we get 50%. So members, please take advantage of this. At the same time, we'll be supporting our brothers like Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew, and we will add in something to our coppers. Next week, we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. Of course, Kiwanis Club of Kingston was organized on March 24th of 1964. So Kiwanis, please note this in your diaries, and please come out. We're going to have a very good turnout. Our interesting program is being developed. Regarding the clubbing opportunities, tomorrow we have two invitations. One is from Kiwanis Club of Young Professionals, Kingston, and that begins at 7 p.m. I've circulated the flyer. Tomorrow, we also have an invitation from West St. Andrew to their meeting. Invitations that have been circulated, and that starts at 6:45. And then on Thursday, as normal, we will be attending Kiwanis Club North St. Andrew's meeting. What do you ready? VP Dwayne has already put in the chat. Next week, the 23rd of March, North St. Andrew. And that is at the police office. When I finish, maybe we could just ask Dwayne to elaborate on that anniversary meeting next week. President.
Yes, DLG Willie, thank you. So next week, Thursday, is our 49th anniversary meeting, and it will be an in-person meeting only, face-to-face, and the cost is $3,000. We start at 6:30 p.m. at the Police Officers Club. The attire is business attire.
If I may add, there's a link in the chat as well that allows you to indicate how many tickets you would need and to leave your details there and to settle thereafter. So you could access it via the link in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you. I will be in touch with EP Dwayne and let him know how many of us will be attending. Hopefully we can have a strong delegation to support our brothers at North St. Andrew on their 49th anniversary.
Yes.
President Junior, that is all the notice announcements as well as interclubbing opportunities for this week. Thank you.
DLG Willie, President Junior, sorry.
Yes.
You would know that DLG Rosie placed in the chat the flyer for the meeting on Thursday. It's actually going to be the launch of the mentorship program, Kiwanis mentorship program, and we're starting with Division 23 Central. So all clubs are invited to attend, and certainly to invite your SLPs, particularly your key clubs and Circle K clubs, to, if not attend in person, online.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I have a conflict event, but I will try and arrange for representation certainly from some of our key clubs in Kiwani. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, DLG Willie. Are there any more announcements from any other clubs? Care to do so at this time?
Sorry, I just want to seek a little clarification.
Yeah.
We now St. Andrew. Is it that the anniversary meeting is not on your Thursday? I don't know if I got mixed up.
No, anniversary meeting is on the 23rd of March, Thursday, the 23rd at Police Officers Club. Yes.
Oh, it is.
On a Thursday.
So the one about the launch, which date is that?
That's this Thursday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Good. If not, you will notice that there are quite a bit of activities coming up now. We are going to be reminding you of some of them, but we're asking all our members to try and attend as many as possible, right? We look forward to our special meeting on Friday evening. Let us all try, as many of us as possible, come out and make it a good time. Our club members and our other Kiwanians. Okay? Thank you. Yes, DLG with you. You're going to say something?
Just remind you, emphasis on the new members.
Right, emphasis, very much so. So our new members, speak to each other and try and come out as many as you as possible so we can talk face to face. Okay, our thought of the week. We'll move to DP Stu with the thought of the week.
Okay, thank you, President Junior.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two short ones, kind of touching on life. So the first one is the best use of your life is to so live your life that the use of your life outlives your life.
Okay.
And the second one is, some may not agree with this, but you will understand the sentiment. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. And that one comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson. So those are my two thoughts, President Junior.
Very much understood. Thank you. Thank you, DPs too. Are there any other business, anything else that you'd like to just quickly deal with? Anything else that we'd like to? We have gone kind of far tonight, so we're about to terminate. Any other business? Anybody else would quickly like to? If not, I'd ask us to just raise our glasses and drink a toast to Kiwanis International. Friend in Jamaica and Jamaica land we love. Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for being with us. At this time, I will now terminate this meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. Thank you all for coming, and a very good night to you all.
Thank you too, President. Very good meeting. I was very impressed by the two presentations.
Right, they were excellent.
I agree. Excellent meeting.
Excellent. Thank you. So you can now, for those of you who are not rushing,